Today, I will test OLT.com, also known as Online Taxes, and see how it works for a real tax return example from start to finish. I will compare the IRS Free File version with the regular OLT website. Enter tax forms like W-2s, 1099s, create a Schedule C, and apply some common deductions and credits. So let's get started. If you want to file for free, go to irs.gov and search for Free File. Then browse all trusted partners to see what tax software is available under the Free File program. For tax year 2025, there were 8 tax software partners to choose from. We will use OLT, Online Taxes. I have never used this software before. If you want to use the IRS Free File version though, which often includes more free forms and options, make sure to go to the website through the IRS site, not by going directly to the company website. For OLT, to the IRS Free File program, you qualify if your AGI is $51,000 or less, or $89,000 or less if you are active duty military. That's for 2025. It also says the state return is free if you qualify for the federal return. OLT's Free File offer is valid for all ages and all states. Now let's compare it to what you get if you go directly to OLT.com instead of through the IRS link. The difference is that your federal return is free no matter what your income is or what forms you need to file, but the state return costs $9.95. And everything is included: investment, crypto, self-employment income, retirement income, and even if you need to itemize. OLT also offers a premium version for just $7.95 for federal and the same price for state. This version includes customer support and audit support, which is a great deal if you have questions. On the OLT website, you can also see a price comparison with other major tax software companies. You can start a free return right from the OLT main page or use the link from the IRS Free File site. I click on to create an account by entering my email address, username, phone number, and a password. The first time I tried, nothing happened. I got sent back to the original screen. I checked my email to see if a verification code was sent, but no, nothing. So I tried again. Same result. To be fair, I was trying this outside of regular tax season, so that may be why it was not working. So I just went to OLT.com directly and tried to create an account there. But that did not work either. It was only after I clicked the Start a New Account option under Tax Products that it finally worked. After that, I got to the additional Login Security section and received a confirmation email. To start your return, you have 3 options. Import your prior year return from OLT, upload a PDF from another tax software, or enter everything manually. I will enter everything manually using a fictional information for Jane. You do not have to only file the current year. OLT lets you file up to 10 years of tax returns. You can also request a filing extension through the software, but that's available only up to due date of the return. For tax year 2025, that means you can request an extension no later than April 15, 2026. I will start my 2025 tax return and answer the citizenship questions. At this point, the software reminds you of the 2 versions available: Free Federal with a $9.95 for state, or the premium version with customer and audit support for additional $7.95 for federal and $7.95 for state. The software also shows you a quick overview of all the tools available, how to search for forms, get help, access tax tools, and view or print your forms. On the contact screen, I can fill in more details. I will be honest, I do not love how many checkboxes there are on this screen, with dense text to read through just to enter contact information. When I try to move on, I get an error saying, I am missing a daytime phone number. There is a checkbox that says you can skip having your phone number printed on your tax return, but you still need to enter it to get past this screen. Next, I need to answer more questions about Jane. Things like whether she received a 1095 health insurance marketplace statement, whether she lived in the US for more than half a year, and whether she has any disabilities. If you are not sure what a question is asking, click the question mark icon for a more detailed explanation. Certain answers will trigger a warning message. Oh no, there are more checkboxes here. Again, a lot of reading involved. Then you get some state-specific questions which matter since I am filing both a federal and state return for 2025. The next important step is your filing status. Jane is single. You can choose from any of the 5 filing statuses. If you are not sure which one applies to you, click the I am not sure, help me decide option. That takes you to the IRS Interactive Tax Assistant tool. Click Begin and answer the questions. The IRS tool will walk you through and confirm your correct filing status. Based on my answers, Jane's status was confirmed as single. Next, if you received or sold cryptocurrency, answer that question as yes. If you are not sure how to answer, check out my separate videos on that topic. Keep answering the remaining questions that help build out your return. If you have any dependents, answer yes and add their personal information, including questions about whether they qualify as your dependent, whether they lived with you for more than 6 months during the year, and whether they are US citizens. If you are being claimed as a dependent yourself on someone else's return, make sure you mark that here. You may also be asked for your state ID or driver license number. This is required by many states to help prevent tax fraud. Your ID number is unique to you, and it helps stop someone else from filing a return in your name. After all that, review your personal information and continue. The next screen lets you quickly select what type of income you need to enter. Jane had W-2 wages, investment income, gig work income, and gambling winnings. You can always add more income type later, but making this selection first helps narrow down which sections show up right away. Even after making those choices, you can go to the federal sections on the left side, then click Income to see all available income categories. Click Expand All to see every subsection. This can feel like a lot, so you can also use the form search at the top to look up a specific form like W-2. Once you click the form in the search results, you will go directly to that section. If you have your W-2 ready, either a paper copy or a digital one, you can upload it here and the software will try to pre-fill the information for you. You will still want to double-check everything, but it does save some time. I tried to upload a form for Jane, but it was not supported. Make sure the file is either a PDF, JPEG, or PNG format. If the upload does not work, just add it manually. Have your W-2 right in front of you and enter the information exactly as it appears, matching the box number on the form. Double-check the employer EIN, Box 1 for wages, and Box 2 for the federal taxes withheld. Enter any Box 12 codes and amounts, such as 401k contributions. Also check Box 13 if the retirement plan box is checked on your W-2. If you are filing a state return, complete Boxes 15 through 20 as well, including all states listed and any state taxes withheld. After you save everything, you will see a summary and have the option to add another W-2 if you worked more than one job. Starting with tax year 2025, there are also new tax law changes, including no tax on certain tips and no tax on overtime pay. If you had tip income shown on your W-2 or overtime listed in Box 14, you will need to claim those deductions under Deductions on Schedule 1A. I have a separate video on how to claim those deductions. At any point during the process, you can preview your 1040 to see how your return looks so far. TurboTax does not let you see a copy of your 1040 until after you pay. This software, OLT, lets you see it at any time, which I think is so great. You can also see every other schedule and form being generated, so you can review your draft return as you go. Next, I will enter Jane's 1099 INT for interest income. If you need to make any corrections after saving, just click the Edit button. If you have dividend income, you can enter it manually or import the form and then review the entries. There is another checkbox here that can be a little confusing, especially if you click the More Info icon, which gives you quite a bit to read through. In Jane's case, these are regular dividends, so I do not need to check that box and can move on. To enter stock sales, search for Form 1099-B, capital gains and losses, or Schedule D. If you have many transactions, OLT lets you try importing your stock sale information from a spreadsheet. However, this is not a simple upload. The spreadsheet has to be created and formatted exactly the way OLT requires. The complexity of the instructions can easily create errors. Since Jane only has one transaction, I will enter it manually instead. Make sure you select the right option for what you sold. For digital assets like cryptocurrency, select the 1099-DA option. If you sold a home, you would use the 1099-S form. For other assets sales not reported on any form, you can enter that information manually. For stock sales, fill in as much detail as you can, including the acquisition date. If you had any wash sale losses, those should be noted on your tax form and entered in the wash sale box. Any additional adjustments can be selected from a drop-down list below. Check your tax form to see whether the cost basis was reported to the IRS or not. I ran into some errors because the software requires quite a bit of detailed information, more than some other tax softwares. To enter gambling income reported on W-2G, go to Other Income and enter it there. Enter the amount, the date of the winnings, the type of wager, and any federal taxes withheld. Fill in all required fields on the form. If the state also withheld taxes, add that amount as well. Keep in mind that not all gambling winnings will come on a form, but you are still required to report them all. If you have gambling losses, you can enter those here too. For tax year 2025 and earlier, you could deduct gambling losses against winnings, up to 100% of your winnings, but only if you itemize your deductions. So if Jane won $1,300, she could deduct up to $1,300 in losses on Schedule A. Starting with tax year 2026, a new law limits the deduction up to 90% of your winnings. So using the same example, you could only deduct up to $1,170 and only if you itemize. Either way, you always have to report all gambling income, regardless if you can claim any losses. If you received unemployment income, search for 1099-G and enter the state information. Enter the amount of unemployment you received, any federal income tax withheld, and any state income tax withheld, since you may have had taxes taken out for both. If you receive jury duty pay, it will not come up if you search for it by name. It is not reported on any tax form. Instead, go to Income and select Other Miscellaneous Income. Then choose Other Income Not Entered Elsewhere. To get a bird's eye view after finishing the income sections, hover over the income title on the left side to see all the categories and subcategories. Jane also drove for Uber on weekends and received a 1099 NEC. She received $5,000 in non-employee compensation. After entering that amount, you have to choose where the 1099 NEC income should be reported: on Schedule C, E, F, or Other Income. For Jane's Uber work, we will create a Schedule C. If Uber reported any tips for Jane, you may want to note those and complete Schedule 1A as well. I have a separate video on reporting 1099 tip income if that applies to you. After you create a Schedule C, go through the different sections and fill in your business information. If you are not sure what your business code is, you can browse through the list in the software or do a quick Google search. Then enter that code and continue filling out the relevant questions. As an Uber driver, Jane may also have received a 1099-K, so I will search for that next. The payer information is already filled in, so I will complete the remaining boxes. One thing I noticed when I pressed Tab to move to the next field, it did not jump in any logical order. After entering the 1099-K information, you can choose whether that income should be reported on Schedule C, E, F, or somewhere else. Since this is also Uber income, I will link it to the same taxi service Schedule C I already created. At any point, you can review your Schedule C under Income, including the expenses and vehicle information sections. Rideshare and delivery companies often charge significant fees, so pull your statements from the application and enter those under Expenses. If you use your phone for business, calculate the percentage that was business use and enter only that portion. For example, if 30% of your phone use was for Uber, multiply your total phone bill by 30% and enter that as an expense. For vehicle expenses, enter the car name, the date you started using it for business, and the total business miles you drove. The Uber app tracks what it calls online miles, including the trip miles and route to pick up a ride and while waiting for a trip. Any driving done outside the online time is not captured, and you should track these miles yourself. Then add them to your total business miles. The standard mileage rate for 2025 was 70 cents per mile. For 2026, it is increasing to 72.5 cents per mile. That rate already factors in things like gas, repairs, and maintenance. So you do not need to track those separately if you are using standard mileage method. You could also use the actual expense method instead, but the standard mileage rate is simpler and often gives you a comparable or better deduction. In Jane's case, her business income was $2,723. After finishing all the expense sections, you move on to adjustments to income and deductions. To deduct expenses you paid as a teacher, search for Educator expenses. For 2025, you can deduct up to $300 if you are an eligible educator, meaning you worked in a classroom at least 900 hours during the school year. Jane already has 401k contributions shown on her W-2, but she can also contribute to a traditional IRA. I will search for IRA Deduction and enter $3,000. This will reduce her adjusted gross income. Jane was paying off her student loans and received a 1098-E. She paid $960 in interest in 2025. The maximum deduction for student loan interest in 2025 was $2,500. So as long as her income is not above the phase-out limit, she will be able to deduct the full $960. To find the deduction section, hover over that item in the left navigation. If it does not appear, you may need to complete the previous sections first. If you think itemizing might save you more than the standard deduction, go ahead and enter your itemized expenses. Things like mortgage interest, real estate taxes, and charitable donations. I am also seeing an error related to Schedule C and the qualified business income deduction, which is 20% of your net business income. The error says I need to go back to Schedule C and review the determination for the qualified trade or business section before I can claim the deduction. After fixing that, you can finish the deductions section and move on to credits. If you have education expenses, go to the Education Credits section and enter your 1098-T form information. Enter qualified expenses in box 1 and any scholarships in box 5. Check the half-time student or graduate student boxes exactly as they appear on your 1098-T. If you paid additional qualified expenses like books or a computer, enter those here as well. Based on your answers, you will either qualify for the American Opportunity Credit or the Lifetime Learning Credit. One thing I do not like about the software is that you cannot freely jump between sections. You have to complete them in order. I tried to click directly on the Payments section to enter estimated tax payments, but I had to finish the Credits and Taxes sections first. Under Payments and Refundable Credits, find the Earned Income Credits section and answer the questions there. If you qualify, this is one of the most valuable credits on your return, so make sure you do not skip it. If you made estimated tax payments during the year, enter the amounts and dates here so you get credit for them. This is especially important if you are self-employed. Review the Other Forms section for anything that applies to your specific situation. Now we get to the tax summary, the big picture. Here you can review all your income, deductions, taxes, and your refund or amount owed. If you have a refund, you can choose to apply part of it towards next year's taxes, which is helpful if you expect to owe self-employment taxes. You can also choose direct deposit or a paper check. The IRS has moved strongly toward direct deposit. It is faster and more secure anyway. After this section, you can review all your federal and state forms, which is really a great feature. You can also download and print them. At any time, you can go to Tax Tools and select View Print Forms. You can choose individual forms or print a complete package, all federal and state forms together. If you have any errors, for example, I had some Illinois state errors, you will not be able to move forward until they are fixed. Go back to that section, correct what is needed, and then continue. One thing I could not figure out for a long time was where to enter the IRS Identity Protection PIN. This is a unique 6-digit PIN the IRS sends to certain taxpayers each year. You need to enter it in your tax software to confirm your identity before filing. It is not under personal info, nor contact or taxpayer info, which is where most other software puts it. In OLT, it is in the review section. Once you go through the review screens, you will get a prompt to enter your IP PIN. When you are ready to file, you will see your total cost. For Jane, the federal return was free and the state was $9.95, exactly as advertised. She had self-employment income, W-2 wages, investments, deductions, and credits, and everything was covered under that price. There were no gimmicks, no extra upgrades. The user interface is not the most polished, but it is clean and fairly easy to follow. I do not love the number of checkboxes and the amount of text you have to read through. And I wish you could move more freely between sections without having to go in order. But the error checking works well, and when I compared the calculations against another major tax software printout, the numbers matched exactly. Also, the price is hard to beat. For a straightforward return or even a more complex one, I would recommend this software. Thanks so much for watching.